Hello, Cosmic Family. It's good to be here with you today. Welcome. I'm Charlie, the Ascension Catalyst. I channel 7 and here to help you uplift, ascend, and live your purpose. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you 3 signs that your ascension is speeding up. That's right, your ascension. Because planet Earth is having its own ascension. And every single one of us is on our own soul path of ascension, whether we are aware of it or not, whether we are willing on that path or not. Now, these 3 signs might not seem like signs that your ascension is moving ahead and you're keeping up with it and it's speeding up. In a lot of cases, a lot of people don't realize that they are making progress because they think that the journey is just A to Z and then there's a final destination. They don't realize that the journey is not just A to Z. It's multi-dimensional. It's A to B to C, back to A, and then to E. All right? So these 3 are powerful signs, especially in your beginning process, your intentional beginning process of ascension. So what are they? I'm going to share with you what they are and also my personal journey, illustrating how these played out in my life, and then you can begin to notice how they're playing out in your life and whether you've already passed or experienced these signs or you are in the process of experiencing them. One of the first signs that your ascension is speeding up is a sense of detachment, especially from the world that you've always known. Your current relationships, especially family relationships, work relationships, even the job that you are doing. Many people begin their journey, their intentional journey of ascension, when they really start to pay attention, that sense of discomfort or that depression or just that uneasiness that they sometimes and often experience in their bodies. It's not just them being reactive to and just being moody. It's really them connecting and realizing that something is off here. And what's beginning to happen is that you are starting to notice that so many of your old relationships or the frame that these relationships have been in have been based on trauma and not necessarily helping you grow and expand, and not necessarily helping the other people help and grow and expand. We especially notice this in our relationship with our blood families. And any journey on this process will require us to a great degree, all of us, to really address what is happening in these relationships. And what's going to happen is that you're going to notice what's really happening within you and how these relationships are reflecting it. Because oftentimes we grew up in families where we experience abuse or trauma that we're not even aware of. It doesn't even have to be direct abuse. Sometimes we might have this idea that our childhood was good, but that yet we still feel a sense of uneasiness when we're around our parents or our siblings, and we start to realize that there are so many behavioral patterns and there is so much emotional unease and dis-ease in these connections. And so the detachment is parts of your inner self that you've sort of shunned and pushed away, starting to emerge and calling forth for you to pay attention to you and that inner world. So if you are here or you are sensing something like this, all it means is to begin to pay attention. I find that journaling is a good way to start to really notice what is going on every single day, to ask yourself some simple questions about what it is that you are feeling, what it is that you are wanting to feel more of, really noticing the relationships that you have in your life. What do you believe about them? How would you like to feel about the relationships that you're in, and how do you feel about them now? And really start to investigate, really notice how it feels in your body when you're around different people in your life. This is not always easy because oftentimes these are the only relationships that we have in our lives. I know when I first began my journey, I was raised in a family where there was a lot of emotional dis-ease and mental illness, and I experienced abuse. And there's a lot of emotional addiction that I experienced early on that I started noticing I had even as I was wanting to merge forth as my own person. And in the beginning, it was very, very difficult because sometimes we have people in our lives that when we try to pull back and we attempt to pull back, they sort of move forward even more. And then we feel this sense of guilt and shame, thinking, oh no, they're not comfortable with me pulling back. What do I do? Especially for empaths, this is very, very important because we tend to go one or two ways when we have not dealt with our inner traumas and have not really practiced how to uplift ourselves. Because we were trained in a way to abandon our own wants and needs so that we can, attempt to fulfill others so they can love us. And that is not what real love is. Then we practice often abandoning ourselves and having no boundaries. Or the complete opposite, we completely shut ourselves down and completely make ourselves unavailable. So if you're noticing you're wanting to pull back from these relationships, pay attention. This means that you are actually receiving guidance from within that's allowing you to now delve a little bit deeper. Okay, so what's sign number 2? You know that your ascension is speeding up when you really begin to see duality play out in your life and the world around you. It's very interesting because there are even religious practices and schools of thoughts that might seem spiritual, but they really feed into this black and white, good and evil. And you might already see this play out in the world around you. And you definitely notice this in the world within you when you are really moving quickly in your ascension. You'll start to notice that things aren't so black and white, that there isn't just there's a lot of gray area in the way that people behave and who people are, and even in the non-physical realm. Because sometimes a lot of people say, there's, physical beings from the light and physical beings from the dark. Well, what a lot of people begin to notice as they delve deeper and they begin to really get a lot more clarity on their spiritual path is not so black and white, even in the non-physical world. And this duality and hanging on to it can be extremely painful because it's constantly creating divisions in your way of thinking, in your way of being, and it's setting parts of you against each other. So your ascension is speeding up when you really feel and notice duality without being reactive to it. You notice it play out in the news. You notice it play out in your relationships. You see it how you utilize it in your thinking to sort of keep you separate from the world around you. And when you start to take the time throughout the day, because it's really impossible to practice it all day long, to have those moments where you feel a sense of unity, where you see the balance between, black and white, feminine and masculine, when you don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater, and you start to see that there are so many little levels in between, that's when your vision is actually expanding. Okay, so number 3. This is really a fun one. Because when you arrive at this point in your ascension, this is when you start to set in motion a lot of amazing things for yourself. And what is this? You begin to receive intuitions, you can hear them, and then you begin to actually take action on them. Now, usually this doesn't happen until we actually experience that sign number 1, which is this sort of distance from the world that we've always known, because that kind of begins to give us a signal to pay attention. Then we start to pay attention, and a lot of that noise that's coming from our conditioning, it clears up a little by little by little, and our intuitive voice strengthens. All right, and so as our intuitive voice strengthens, we are able to listen and actually take action. I know this happened in my life when I began to connect with 7, and their voice became much more powerful and clear. And I started to really receive a lot of strong intuitions. One of them was to completely uproot my life from one part of the world to the next. And I was living in the US East Coast, and I got this strong intuition to move out west. And what was really amazing about this is that it wasn't so much about where I was going, even though that had a lot to do with it, but it was finally listening to that inner voice and allowing myself to really follow my intuition instead of all the things that I was told I need to be and I should be doing with my life and all of that. And because I followed that intuition, I was able to completely shift my reality. I was able to gain my health back. I met my twin flame, who was an amazing catalyst for my own ascension. And just overall, it set me on a brand new path that was really the path that I sensed in those short moments and bursts of clarity when I was depressed and I was feeling suicidal. So when you begin to get these intuitions, they're very powerful, and they're sort of guiding you to take certain actions that don't feel comfortable. But when you do, you are rewarded. It's like you're rewarded with the real treasure. And that treasure is you finding the truest parts of you. Because so much and so many humans are living in so many false identities, not because they want to, they're doing it intentionally, but precisely because they are not intentional, because they've been trained to be hypnotized into the world of their families, and their families were hypnotized by the worlds of their families, and this happens in a social, cultural level as well. And as we begin to unplug for the matrix and gain clarity, we start to see new possibilities. These are 3 powerful signs, and you might have either experienced all of them or none of them. It does not matter. If you're watching this video, it's because you are on a path of ascension, whether you are aware of it. And whether you're aware of it, you are being called to be present with you. And I want to remind you that there is a lot of help coming from not just this planet, but outside this planet, and that is constantly present to guide us. So tap into it. Reach both within that part of you, because that part of you, that deeper aspect of you, is connected to the non-physical, is connected to all those multiple layers of existence, where there are so many beings that are reaching out to share their wisdom and to help us as humanity uplift, all right? Because planet Earth is uplifting, is ascending. What a lot of people think is that, okay, well, because planet Earth is ascending, I'm just gonna sit back and wait for her to ascend. No, we are active participants in this ascension. So our attention is required, our active participation is required in order to really allow for this ascension to also include humanity. So thank you so much for plugging in. If you want and need help in your path of ascension, feel free to reach out. My email address is below, ascension7@gmail.com or charliekwild@gmail.com. And feel free to join your cosmic family on Facebook. Link is below. I thank you so much. Subscribe, like, and share this video with anyone that you believe could really benefit from this message.